guys, happy Sunday. Welcome back to my channel. So this week we have a really fun DIY. We're still kind of sticking with that fall themed series, but it's going to be a little bit different in that this is something that can stay out all year long if you want to, or just for fall. This is one that I'm really excited about. I've been wanting to do something in a particular space in my house for quite a while. I'll show a picture of what it looks like right now. On our front porch, framing the doorway into our house, we have two pots that I just kind of call like no man's land. So with those two pots, literally anything that I plant in there doesn't make it. It always dies, and part of that is because of me. I forget to water things under the porch, and so they just don't make it. But even things like succulents or rubber plants or something like that that is known to be more of a survivor just does not make it under that porch no matter what I do. Even when I remember to water it, there's just something about that space. It's cursed or something, everything dies. So what I wanted to do was to make something to fill those pots and make them look cute and inviting, and frame the doorway nicely, because right now they're just kind of like empty pots and it's kind of just like a sad statement to the entrance. So I was thinking that in going with the fall vibe, we could make some little ceramic mushroom gardens to go into those pots. So if you've been around for a little bit and you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I made some dollar store mushrooms for the backyard, which turned out really, really cute. I love the mushroom vibe. I think it's very like cottage core, cozy, quaint, just very in line with the style that I like. So I wanted to kind of mirror that on the front of our house by doing these ceramic mushrooms. So these should be very simple. We're gonna try a couple of different styles of mushrooms in making these, and we're gonna see what turns out the best. So what I wanna do is take those two pots and kind of make a variety of different mushrooms in different sizes, and put them throughout the pots in little groupings so that it's kind of like a little mini garden. And then we can decorate the pots, surround them with some moss and some lights, and just make it much more cozy, much more homey, and go with the vibe of everything else that we're doing for the house and the front porch. So if you're interested in making a mushroom garden with me, then stick around and watch the rest of this video. We're gonna get right into it. It's a very quick, easy DIY, and it really should be pretty inexpensive as well. Okay, so the materials that we're gonna need for today's DIY are just a couple of things. If you've done some of my videos in the past, you may already have a lot of these. What we're going to be using is some air dry clay. So I like to use the air dry clay called Das. We're also going to have some moss to put in the pots, and then some LED fairy lights that we're gonna put in there. And those are the ones that are on the little timer battery pack. And then with that, you're gonna need any color paints that you want for decorating your mushrooms and making them look mushroom-like. And then a lacquer for the air dry clay to kind of seal everything in. All right, so once you have all your materials gathered, then we are going to start making our mushrooms. Okay, so starting off this DIY, we're gonna get all of our supplies together, and we are going to start by going into the garden and collecting a few sticks. So these could be any shape, size, width stick that you have available to you and that you're interested in using. This is going to be the base that your mushroom sits on top of, so it's going to be like the stem of the mushroom. So keep that in mind when you're looking, and also think about how deep it needs to sit into the pot or whatever it is that you're going to be putting your mushroom into, so that you get one that's long enough. So I have collected like a little pile of sticks in preparing for this, so we're going to go and pick a few out. Okay, so let's open up our clay. I'm gonna take my rings off so I don't get clay in them. So this is a pretty simple process. What you're gonna do is you're gonna tear off a piece of your clay like so. And we're kind of gonna experiment with the size of the clay to figure out what size we need to make our mushroom shape. You're gonna roll the piece of clay into a little ball like that. And then you're gonna take the top of your stick that you want to be sticking out of the ground, and you're gonna press your clay onto it like that. Once you have that, start to kind of squish your clay into a mushroom shape. And honestly, mushrooms are all different shapes, sizes, colors. Like, there are hundreds of different kinds of mushrooms that exist. Really, it does not have to be perfect. Probably the less perfect, the better, because it's gonna look more natural and like something you would actually find in nature. Move your mushroom around, get it looking the shape that you want. You can have some that are like holding tight onto the stick. You can have some that are pulled away. Whatever looks good to you, really. So, for example, that's one right there. And so we're gonna let this dry as is. And if we find that our mushroom is falling off, then we can put a little bit of hot glue inside to hold it on. But really, they're not going to be upside down ever, so it should be okay. And that is the first step of this process. So I was not joking when I said it was going to be easy. You're just making a bunch of different mushrooms like this. Make sure that you're doing different sizes, different shapes. You don't want your mushrooms to all look exactly the same. And then we're also going to incorporate some of these as we go. So I'm going to set my first one off to the side right here. And actually, I think I'm going to stick them in this little cup so that they can dry without getting smushed. When you're making the ones with your cupcake holders, you want to take one of your cupcake holders, and the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to leave it completely intact. I tried doing it where we cut it and tape it, and I just didn't love how it turned out, and I didn't think it was super secure either, so we're not going to tape it. I wouldn't recommend that. I would suggest just keeping it whole like this. You're going to tear off a pretty big piece of your clay, about like that, and roll it into a ball. And then once you've done that, we're going to flatten it out. Just kind of mash it down until it's generally flat. It's okay if it's a little bit lumpy because we're making a mushroom, so it doesn't need to be perfectly flat, but you want it to be bigger than your cupcake holder. You don't want it to get too thin because then it's not going to be as strong when you put it on your stick. And we're going to set it over the top of our cupcake holder like this, and then just start to kind of form a shape around it. You don't want to press too hard because then these folds will come out, but once you have it just laying over like that, you can set it on top of your stick and start to kind of just mold it to make the shape that you like. So something like that honestly looks really good to me because mushrooms have folds like this. They can be kind of like wispy and sticking out different lengths and shapes. And so this is a pretty good look to me because you can see the crinkle paper coming out underneath, which kind of gives the effect of like the spores and the ridges under the mushroom, which diversifies the types of mushrooms that we're making. So I'm gonna leave mine like this, and probably once it dries, I will glue it to the stick because this one is not as tight fitting as the other ones that we've made, and so I wouldn't want it to wobble around too much and then break. Okay, so I want to show you guys how to make a couple that I just made that I think turned out really cute. For this first one, a ball about like this size, maybe a little bit larger is good, nothing crazy. And you're just gonna roll it into, okay, once you have a little ball like this, you're gonna do our normal thing and put it onto your stick, making sure that we're not poking through the top. And then just make your mushroom shape however you want it to be. And the cool part with this one is the next technique that we're gonna do. So what I did was I took some scissors that I had over here, and I just kind of pressed them in all throughout the bottom at different angles and just overlapping, going up the sides a little bit, just kind of whatever looks good to you. It doesn't need to be uniform or perfect. And we're just kind of making those ridges that you see under mushrooms often that are like really cool and make them interesting. And this is the same thing that we were basically doing with the cupcake holders, just without the paper. So it gives that ridged look underneath, and you can kind of see it poking through. So when we paint it, that's really going to kind of pop out. So that is our first one that I wanted to show you. So this one I thought was super cool because by layering the clay going up, you get kind of that like oyster mushrooms, and it kind of makes it look like it has layers to it, which it does. So probably something like that, a little bit bigger than last time. And you're just gonna kind of mash it together into a general ball shape. It doesn't need to be perfect or rolled out. And then we're going to put it onto our stick. And what you wanna do here is start pinching the base to make like the neck of the mushroom. So we don't want to bother with the top yet. You want to leave a good bit up here. And then once you have that, you're going to go to the top of your mushroom and start pressing in and pinching to get that flattened top. Then what I'm going to do is peel off a little piece of clay and just kind of pinch it so that it flattens out. And then once you have that, it doesn't need to be perfect at all. The edges will actually look better if they're a little bit rougher like this. You're going to wrap it around and then pinch it so that it goes together. With this one thing of clay, one block of clay, I was able to make 15 mushrooms, and these are pretty large scale mushrooms. We were able to make a fair amount, and I think that this will be a good amount of mushrooms to fill the 2 pots to make little mushroom gardens once we add moss and some lights and things like that. We're gonna stop here, we're gonna let these dry overnight, and then we will come back and paint them tomorrow. Okay guys, so it is day 2 of our mushroom gardens. We let the ceramic mushrooms dry overnight after we molded them and shaped them into their forms. So all of our mushrooms are nice and dry now. So today we're gonna paint them. So I have my painting supplies set out. We also have our guest artist, little Nala, here because I'm not sure if you can tell because I have a light going, but it's super stormy outside right now, and she is afraid of the storm, so she wants to sit with me the whole time. So she's gonna hang out with us. And then I grabbed a bunch of paints that I had in my art kit. So these are all acrylic paints. When you're painting your mushrooms, keep in mind that you can go 2 routes with this, really. You can paint them to be super realistic, or you can paint them to be a little bit more whimsical and go with really bright, vibrant colors that maybe aren't as common in nature. Anything you want to do is totally fine. It's your mushroom garden, so make it look how you want to look. I'm probably going to do a combination of the 2 and go off of things that I see in nature as inspiration, but maybe add in some more vibrant colors as we go. So I just picked some colors that appealed to me, and we're just gonna go with what feels right. And now the hard part is kind of maneuvering it out of this container I put it in. For this mushroom, I think I'm gonna go with a more traditional mushroom look. We've got like the red with the white dots. But yeah, so we're just gonna paint this guy. And for this one, I'm gonna paint it all over this color. And I'm gonna try my best not to get any of this pinky purpley color onto the stick. I want to kind of keep it onto the mushroom, and I'm going to paint the stick a lighter color, but if it gets on the stick, we can just let it dry and put a couple coats over it and it'll be okay. Okay, and I got a couple of dots of the pink onto the stick, but it's okay. Hear that storm? Okay, so now that we have this all painted, the next thing I want to do is pick a cream or a white color to paint our stick and our dots with. So I'm going to use this one right here, I think. There we go. Can you see? Paint. And then I'm going to use a smaller brush to do our dots and paint our stick. So I'll start with our dots, and I'm going to get just a little bit of our cream colored paint, so that way we're not crossing the pink and the white too much. We can wash it off and wipe it off as we go. And then I'm just going to do little dots on the mushroom, and I don't want them to be perfect dots. I want them to be different shapes, different sizes, all over it. And I'm going to paint down our stick a little bit. And again, one of the great things about this DIY is that you really do not want any of this to be completely perfect, because it's something that is found in nature, so it isn't going to be perfect. So if you do make it super, super perfect, then it's going to look more man-made. And as I get lower down the stick, I want the white to kind of fade out. So I'm going to use what's left on my brush to start just dragging it down a little bit so that it looks kind of like that chalky residue that you get on mushrooms sometimes. There we go, just like that. And then after these have all dried, we're going to go back, and for some of them we're going to add on little bits of moss and things like it's growing on the mushrooms. So for the ones that look a little bit more plain, we can do that. So this is our first one all done. And we are going to start painting a few more. Now that we have all of our mushrooms painted, I have 2 cups worth over here. What I want to do is go ahead and put a glaze on them. So this is something that is optional, and it really depends on where you're going to be putting your mushrooms, if they need this or not, and also the look that you want for your mushrooms. With the glaze, this is helpful because it's going to protect the ceramic and it's going to protect the paint. For me, I'm going to have these outside, but they're going to be under my front porch, so they won't really get exposed to the elements too much. They will be in the heat and humidity, but they won't really get rain on them because they're all the way at the back of our porch. So usually the rain doesn't come up that high. I'm going to use the glaze because I want to make sure that they are protected for being outside and that they last and are really durable so that, you know, I can keep them out there for a long time without them getting messed up. If you think that your weather conditions are a little bit more mild than what I'm experiencing, I'm in Florida, it's pretty hot, it's pretty humid, so it is a little bit more on the extreme side of the weather. If you don't have that, you might not need a glaze. Also, if you're planning on putting these inside, you probably wouldn't need a glaze. This glaze we have used before on my channel. We used this when we did the air dry clay pressed flower trays, and also with the egg carton. So this is one that I have tried with a couple different projects, and I know that it's really good. Also, this jar on Amazon is like, I think $10 maybe, might be less than that. I've used this on 4 different projects at least already, if not more, and you can see, I don't even know if I can show you because it'll pour out, but you can see that it's like pretty much still full. It's all the way up to about here, and I've already used it on 4 fairly large projects. So it lasts a really long time, and it's really useful even if you have like chipped china or something like that. This will repair it and it'll keep it from cracking any further. I will link everything that I use below for you guys like I always do. We're gonna go ahead and add the glaze to our mushrooms at this point. It takes about 24 hours for the glaze to completely cure and dry. So once we do that, we're gonna let this dry overnight, then we'll be ready to put them outside and decorate. Okay, so now that we have everything hot glued down and they're all cooling off, we're going to go ahead and start adding moss to some of them. We're not going to add them to all of them, we just want to add it to some to kind of give them a little bit of interest and texture if they're more on the simple side, or if that's one that we just want to add some to. So I have our moss over here and I'm kind of breaking it up into little pieces so that it's easier to work with. And what we'll do is we'll decide where we want to put it and start to add our moss. And I also have some tweezers here in case we need them to kind of press the moss in so we don't burn ourselves. So I'm going to add a little bit right here. So what I'm doing is pressing it onto the hot glue and then pulling off the excess because I don't want it to be too thick. I just want it to kind of give a little bit of texture, kind of like it was growing that way to begin with. So like that for this one. Alright, so now we've applied our moss to our mushrooms and we're going to head outside and start to decorate with them. We're out on the front porch and the plan is to split up the mushrooms evenly between the two pots. So there's 15 mushrooms total, so I'm going to do 7 and 8. And then we're going to decorate them, lay them out how we want to, so that they look nice in the garden and there's a good variety of the different kinds of mushrooms and colors. Once we have that all set up, then I'm going to lay out some fairy lights that we can set on a timer. And we'll put that on top of the soil here, and then we can put our moss on top to cover up the fairy lights so that they just kind of shine through and twinkle and illuminate the mushrooms in evening time. Alright, so we have them all positioned out here, and the next thing that we're going to do is take our fairy lights and lay them around our mushrooms. And we're going to cover this with our moss after, so it doesn't really matter if you can see it. You just want them positioned all throughout your mushrooms so that they light them all up. And these are the same fairy lights that we used last week in our video where we did the garlands, decorating for fall, and the pumpkin pillows. So these are the Philips fairy lights. And they come in a pack of 6, and so far I've used 4 of them for 2 different projects. So they go a pretty long way, and I'll make sure to link all this stuff for you guys. Alright, so we are going to place them throughout our mushrooms, and then we'll cover them with our moss. Alright, well that wraps up our video for this week. I hope that you all enjoyed it and that you give it a try. I would love to hear how your mushroom garden turns out, or if you decide to just do them for individual pots. Leave a comment below and let me know how yours turned out and what style you went with. And I hope that you enjoy adding to our fall decor every week and building on the decorations that we have in our home and kind of enhancing the style that you're looking to have within your space. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can see more like this every week. I put out new videos every Sunday, and we're going to be doing some fall-inspired DIYs for the next few weeks as we kick off the fall season. We have a bunch of really fun things planned so that you don't want to miss it, and hopefully you'll be decorating your home along with me so that we can start off the holiday season super strong. See you guys next week.